welcome to Clementine Made Me Do It. My name is Sarah. This is the Fiber Trek version of sewing. I have been doing a lot of sewing and I did not bring everything here to kind of show and tell. I brought a smattering of projects I've been working on recently, but primarily I wanted to talk to you about Alabama Channon and the piece that I just finished, the process of that, in case you were interested in pursuing such endeavors. But everything else is going to look really familiar. I make a lot of Anne Carolyn smocks by Ellen Mason or Odysseer. I make a lot of Endless Summer tunics by A Verb for Keeping Warm, and a lot of Alabama Channon boleros. That's kind of my staple wardrobe. I can mix and match. I can really use both of those garments to create a bit of whimsy and charm in my wardrobe up against the neutrals that I work with in fiber, and I love them for the work that I do. I work in a school and it's a conversation piece for students, and I can get on the floor, I can wash them easily. It's just, it really is an overall great uniform. And in the morning when I get up, I have my neutral trousers, and then I have this whole closet full of fun, like I said, charming, whimsical, or sometimes neutral shirts that I feel comfortable in and I know look good on me, or I feel like this is a power garment, and boom, pair of dance goes, boom, nice gray sweater, boom, I'm out the door. So I don't have to think a lot. I'll talk a little bit about another piece of the wardrobe I'm going to add to this to kind of create more ease and opportunity. But in the meantime, let's just talk about Anne Carolyn smocks. So I get a ton of compliments on this particular fabric. I think this is Train Ride. And it might be Japanese Train Ride. But Anne Carolyn smock, if you're just tuning in, has a yoke. It has this raglan sleeve. This may not be helpful at all. And it is a tunic, so it comes down to just about mid-thigh. What I really like about these garments is they have a waist shaping on them, so they kind of come in and then flare out. I'm wearing one right now. This is my Scandinavian mittens. And like I said, they're just little great story pieces, you know, little narratives. And sometimes I've said this before too, like I'll pick fabrics to match some of the children's books that I use. So that's one Anne Carolyn smock. I also have, and this one is really fun, and I have been having, when I initially bought this fabric, it was kind of on the periphery of my normal fabric selections. I like linen, I like neutrals, I like cotton, I like, you know, fun prints. This one is a little bit on the more daring side. It's a Robert Kaufman. I got this at Clementine in Rockland. A lot of my fabrics come from Clementine, which is run by Leah. And it's really helpful to be able to reach out to that shop for a number of reasons. One is to get fabrics and get really good advice about how they might work for a garment. The second is just a really nice selection. And I just find that it's easy for me to find lots of fabric there that I really, really like. And there's garment making fabric there. So Clementine and Rockland, don't miss it if you come to Maine. And she also carries Starcroft yarn from Nash Island. So, right. Hi Leah, if you're watching. So this has a bit of, I don't know the name of the thread that is creating the kind of snazzy, silky shine. But I love wearing this garment. It is a little, like when you hold it up to the light, it is a little sheer. So I don't think it actually is when you wear it, but I do wear a camisole underneath it. But I love how it feels on the body. It's like I thought it was going to be kind of scratchy, but it's not. I love the drape, and I love that it's kind of like disco nights, but I'm at at school. And I bought a pair of metallic Danskos. They're bronze, so like that and this together are like that's my Uber going out outfit. And that's what I love about the Anne Carolyn smock. Well, for me, I'm not a very glamorous gal. You know, like that's like fitted dresses, you know, lots of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like this works for me for night and day. So anyway, there it is. I'll try to insert some photos. It's hard for me to try these on, reset the camera up. I will do that because I want to get you some shots of the finished Alabama Shannon project, but I really didn't want that to become the limiting factor for getting a podcast out to you, or a vlog or whatever out. So those are two Anne Carolyns that I kind of have on my radar. I wear all of but those I recently finished. I have these 3 endless summer tunics. These are by A Verb for Keeping Warm. I don't hand stitch the garment itself. I use my serger on it. This is the medium. It's a cut medium. I've done some modifications to the neckline, etc. But I do hand bind all of the necklines and armholes. So here's one. So I cut 1 1/4 inch binding strips out of the fabric, and then I just wrap that cut edge and crete and stitch. So it looks something like this. So this is one of my boleros I recently finished. Here. So I also have this one. And I have this one. I have another one that I finished. I did 4 of these this fall. Obviously I haven't finished hand binding them. And it has like Hawks in Flight on it. It's upstairs and I forgot to bring it down. So those just need to be bound and they'll be ready to go. What I'm thinking of adding to my wardrobe is an underdress, kind of that could go under the Anne Carolyn smocks. It can go under the Endless Summer tunic. I have another Ellen Mason to put together to try out. And so this is kind of a riff on the ebony. I think that's Closet Case Files. But Janie Estella Starcroft was really generous in kind of sharing her modification, which fit me really well. I tend to kind of ride her garment bandwagon quite a bit because she has really good taste and she's a really amazing seamstress and pattern drafter. So I picked up these neutral knits, and this is a cocoa brown, I have black, and I have gray. And this can be a long sleeve or a tank, and I just wanted kind of a comfortable layering piece to go under any of these, just to A, create a fun layered look, and B, to create a little extra warmth here in the winter. So I think my plan is to do all of these as sleeveless, and then I'm working on an Anne Carolyn winter wardrobe out of flannel. So here's the first one I'm doing out of flannel, and then I've got these 2 flannels. So I figure kind of a tank dress underneath an Anne Carolyn smock in the knit, and then long silk underwear. Did I mention that earlier? I purchased some neutral long silk underwear. So long silk underwear and then boots. So I think that's going to be my kind of my winter wardrobe with sweaters. And then the Endless Summer tunics, I figure can go over a long sleeve version of that or over the tank, and then I can wear the boleros like I normally do. So everything should kind of be able to interchange itself. The other thing I'm working on, as I always do, this time of year are pajamas for my niece and my nephew. And I am doing the Sleepover Pajamas by Oliver and S out of these fun bears. And then this is going to be the cuff trim, the facing on the front, and the waistband. So that's on the go. Right, so that leads me to my Alabama Shannon finished piece. So I did an endless summer tunic because I knew that I liked the way that that looked, and it was a guaranteed garment that would fit and I would enjoy. I was a little hesitant to just cut out and do an Alabama Shannon pattern because I haven't really fitted them to my body, and so I really wanted to get to the process of the handwork versus the actual, I just wanted a finished garment that I could do handwork on, so I knew the Endless Summer would work for that. So I picked up, this is Amy Glass, maybe? I got this from Hawthorne Threads. It's a heavy jersey. I love this fabric, absolutely love it. I love all the colors it comes in, and I'll show you some more that I picked up. So here is the bound neckline, and here is the finished reverse applique. So that's the technique that I did, was reverse applique. And what that means is there are 2 layers of fabric. So you'll see the inside is that emerald green, the outside is the navy. I stenciled onto the navy, the top fabric, the leaves, the falling leaves pattern right here. And I did that in a gray. And then you hand stitch around the entire motif and you cut away the inside leaf, and you're left with the color on the reverse side. So I was able to put this whole thing together from her books. She has 3, I think, maybe 4, and she just released a new one. I don't know if it's called The Physics of Sewing, but it's about kind of embroidery and how to create stitches, etc. Anyway, so so her books are really helpful, and they really do enable you to complete the process. So I cut the stencil, I ordered the paint, I cut the stencil out of Mylar. Here's an example of Mylar. This is 10mm Mylar. I wouldn't recommend going that thick, but that's what I have. And I used an X-Acto knife, a straight edge X-Acto knife on the new leaves piece. And it was really hard to turn corners. I think for this particular pattern it turned out fine, but when I went to do like this pattern, I had a really hard time kind of creating these edges. So, having learned from that, I downloaded, I bought and downloaded from her website this pattern. I can't remember the name of it, but the stencils are all on her website. They're available digitally, and they also laser cut them on Mylar, and you can buy them that way, but they are sometimes price prohibitive. This one I figured I could make and stencil myself. What I discovered on Amazon was this stencil cutter, and it's very similar to a wood burner. So it has this hot tip, and that heats up, and then you can cut the Mylar. You basically melt the Mylar. This is so much fun. I had so much fun with this. So I used this to cut this stencil, and you can see I was able to get these little parts right here, where I think with an X-Acto knife it would have been not very much fun and potentially dangerous. So anyway, I recognize that there's a lot of investment here for tools. This was $20. This pack was $12.95 actually, so it's not terrible. And I'm planning on cutting some more stencils, so I'll have fun doing that. And yeah, so The other investment that I had to make was in the actual paint. And I found that I was surprised at how expensive or varied that was. Now, Alabama Shannon does sell paint on her website that they're pre-mixed colors. And I found that piece of the process really difficult, which was mixing the color and then extrapolating the small portion that I mixed to a larger portion to actually do the whole, all the stenciling. So that for me was the hardest part, was sampling, figuring out how that paint was going to react with the fabric, and then creating the amount of paint that I needed so it was consistent across the garment. So that was probably the hardest part for me. So once I had stenciled it on, once I cut my stencil, mixed my paint, and I actually stenciled this piece with makeup sponges and then just blotting it on over the stencil. It worked great. For my next garment, I purchased a Badger airbrush gun, and I can use that with the compressor. So that was $20, and then the attachment was $15, I think. So, but I think you get a better application, and it goes a little bit faster. One thing that I noted is when I was using the makeup applicator or the makeup sponge, a lot of paint went through the fabric and it created a stiffness. And I have plans of doing an applique project where you stencil your garment with a very light color. Then you stencil your contrasting fabric on reverse, and you cut that out, and then you applique it onto the garment. I figured if doing that, I didn't want to sponge on paint because it would create these very stiff, rigid fabric pieces for applique. So the airbrush layers on the paint much lighter, and therefore when you cut out a piece or you go to use that, it hasn't soaked through to the back of the fabric. So it's a much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Light. Now, that being said, it does create more difficulty for me in thinking about my paint, because when I'm sampling, I'm creating samples, and then you got to put it in your airbrush gun, and it's just a longer process. So I tried doing it with the sponge. The garment takes up the paint different when you use the sponge versus the application. So I'm going to show you an example of that. So for my next project, I'm doing another Endless Summer tunic, and I'm using this stencil. So here's my sample for that, and you can see I really like this color. Again, this is the same fabric, Amy Glass. This time I stitched the hand stitching with embroidery floss. The hand stitching on this garment is button craft thread. Now I went to do, so this was sponged paint. This was my airbrush. And you can see, it's just, maybe you can't see, maybe I'm delusional. I think I like this one better. This one's more pink and this one's like more of a purple. So I'm like, how do I'm not a color, I'm mixing and etc. It's difficult for me. So anyway, that's my dilemma right now. Here's my thinking. I'm gonna sponge this garment. I have another garment I'm gonna do that I'm gonna use for applique, and I'm gonna airbrush that just for the reasons I highlighted earlier about the saturation of the paint into the fabric. So this is my next project sample. This will be all over the Endless Summer tunic, and it'll have a bolero in this color. So, right, I'm gonna throw on my Alabama Shannon so you can take a look at that, then I'm gonna say farewell. Right, so here it is. Couple things to note, like one thing that I really like about the fabric is, because it's 2 layers, is how kind of rigid and structured it is. And I like the way that skims over the clothing that I wear. So like I can wear jeans underneath and it doesn't like meld into the forms of the jeans. And I think this, with one of those layered dresses underneath, will look really fun and modern, and I'm looking forward to putting that outfit together. And yeah, so you can see how this bolero suits perfectly, and it can be a summer garment, and I can wear this in the winter at work. And the cotton itself, the jersey, is comfortable and warm. And again, you've got 2 layers on, and you can also layer this with like a nice cardigan. So there you have it. I love that this is washable in the machine, and I haven't done that yet, but I'll probably do it. Washing it is going to be on the delicate cycle, fill it up, gentle, and then maybe air fluff it in the dryer and then let it finish drying on its own. So yeah. So thanks for tuning in to this edition. I hope to see you sooner rather than later. I'm primarily going to be focusing on the children's pajamas. I do hope to get some of the stenciling done today, and hopefully also next time I'll have my Anne Carolyn's done, as well as my underdresses. So in the meantime, I hope that you're all doing well and in good spirits. I'll see you next time. Bye.